So we are live. And you are very welcome, Maryse. And to those of you that are joining in, thank you very much for popping along to my Facing Fear show. And I am delighted with my guest this evening. It is Maryse Godet Copans. And I think, yeah, close. And Maryse is originally from Belgium. She lives in New York for the last 25 years. And Maryse is a transformative coach who has trained with Michael Neill. And I have like a girl crush on Michael Neill. And I'm really excited to have you on because I guess I'm currently immersing myself in the inside out learning. And so it's lovely to have a transformative coach on to share your insights and your wisdom in relation to fear. So Maryse, I guess if we start, I'd like to ask you about your experience with fear and how it has shown up in your life to date.
How long do we have?
As long as we need.
So, it's interesting because I was reflecting upon it walking this morning because I knew I would be coming on your show. And I saw something that I hadn't really seen before, even though people around me maybe would go, obviously. But that fear was definitely a big part of my life from almost the get-go, that I knew. So the fear of misbehaving, of not being a good enough daughter or student and all that stuff. But what I realized today was that it didn't stop me. And moving into young adulthood and more mature adulthood, I sort of started wearing my push through fear like a badge of honor. Look at me. I'm afraid, but it doesn't stop me.
Okay.
Until it actually did stop me. So, I moved
and
countries, obviously. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Did you kind of have a name for yourself? So did you see yourself as, I'm a tough girl, I can, like I'm a warrior, I can battle my way through this?
No, it was just something I did. I remember the move from Brussels to London, it was back in the 80s. The world was not open the way it is now. I didn't know a soul in London. The fear was incredible. But I pushed through it because I was not going to be stopped by that. And it seemed like a good idea. And I kept doing that. It was just the way I would function until I was, I think, in my early 40s when symptoms started, bodily, physical symptoms started to show up for me. Panic attacks, floatiness / dizziness, some stomach upset, really, really unpleasant stuff, very unpleasant stuff.
And because it's exhausting, isn't it? You do everything from I'm really scared doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm really tough and I'll fight my way through. I mean, it requires so much energy, and of course that energy has to come from someplace. So someplace is being depleted.
Yes. And at one point I couldn't really do it anymore. So my life started getting smaller and smaller. So I would keep the symptoms at bay the best I could. Then I started this long search for a solution to my anxiety issues or solutions. If it's out there, I tried it, from therapy to biofeedback to acupuncture, vitamin therapy, you name it, I tried it.
Okay.
And everything helped, it did help, but it just helped. I kept my head just above water.
Okay.
That's all.
And that's tough, I mean, that requires a lot of effort.
Yes, and also keep in mind that most people around me had no idea that it was that bad. So there was also energy going into keeping a good face, know. So there was that. And then for some reason, early 2017, I decided I was done. I was done trying to feel better. Because that was exhausting too. It was a full-time job to try and live life in a sort of reasonable way. And and then trying to get better at the same time. I was like, you know what? I'm done. And
Yeah.
if I don't travel anymore ever, so be it. All the things that I didn't want to do anymore, so be it. I'm done. And you know the power of giving up, right?
Yes.
A
Yeah.
few, yeah, a few months later, so I started, New Year's resolution. I'm giving up. 2017. And I did give up. And in April, I think it was, I was listening by chance to a Michael Neal radio show. And I heard him say, we live in the feeling of our thinking. And I heard it. I was like, no, that can't be true. I feel first, I feel horrible, and then I start thinking, and then I feel more horrible, right? But then I started paying attention and I realized, he might be right. This is really interesting. I mean, nobody's ever said that to me before.
And, it
Go
didn't
ahead.
start with Sydney Banks that he was walking with somebody one day and he just said, I'm really anxious. And somebody said, no, you're not. You just think you are.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
went, what? Oh, I just think I'm anxious? What do you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
It's crazy, right? I mean, it's so simple. But
So
at first I was like, nah. And then a few weeks later, I kept listening to him and it sort of made sense. But then a few weeks later, I encountered Nicola Bird and her program, A Little Piece of Mind, which was really new at that time. And even though I had said never again, I did do it because she was me. When I heard her story, it was like for the first time, Tracy, I can't tell you how many people I worked with on anxiety who had no idea what anxiety actually felt like.
Okay.
So
Yes.
here I met a woman who knew. She knew. So I thought, I've got
Yeah.
nothing to lose. I'm going to listen. I know she's worked with Michael Neal before, so it's going to be along those lines. Let's go listen. And that was June, almost 3 years ago. So June 6 or something, 2017, I started her 12-week program. And life has never been the same. I mean, I feel the best I think I've felt my whole life.
I know. And the funny thing is when you
It's
ask
crazy.
people sometimes, what did you do? Nothing really. I love that with, the
Yeah.
inside out understanding is that but what do you actually do? Well, you don't really do
Yeah,
anything.
don't
It's
really
just,
do anything.
I know it's more just a lovely, it's like being wrapped up in a warm blanket, just a
Yeah.
lovely feeling of comfort and safe and it's there. It's just in there.
It's just in there. And there's one thing that Nicola said, I remember at the beginning. Again, it was a moment like you live in the feeling of your thinking. The moment with her was the default. The default is peace. I'm like, no, 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 no. Maybe for you now, but for me, the default is anxiety. And then I realized that by default, she didn't mean where I spend the most time. She meant where I return.
Yes.
And when I got that, I was like, oh my God, she's right. Like no one can cry forever. The heart cannot race forever. We cannot breathe like that forever. I mean, the whole system is designed to return to calm. And I had never seen that before. That it was actually built in.
Yeah, it's funny the few times where I have been, and I suppose not anxiety, but stuck in my own shit, basically in my own story, and I got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored listening to myself. I am so bored telling this story. It's just I'm actually annoying the crap out of myself right now. And that it always snapped me out of whatever cycle I was in. But I'd come back to it because I think I didn't know how I was getting out of it, or I didn't. It was just too easy to get sucked back into it again for some reason. Yeah. And I guess, like, how would you say fear has, what has it taken from you up until the time that you had that understanding? What did it take from you?
It took ease away from my life. Everything was a struggle. Everything was a struggle. Even the most basic task, like getting up in the morning. You know, I would wake up to a big wave of anxiety, feeling dizzy. So the idea of getting up was a struggle. So no ease, basically, no flow, no ease in daily life. Um, it, I was in jail. I was in prison, and there was no freedom
Hmm.
because everything was measured against how will I feel? Can I do this? How will I feel? Oh no 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 no. So there was no space, no, yeah, no freedom. I would say
Yeah.
if that was the basic stuff that was taken away. Yeah.
Do you see, you know, when you look around and other people who are still trapped in that cage, that imaginary cage of fear, how it stops them from really experiencing the creativeness that they could have in their life, the fun. I think it's the fun that we miss out on so many experiences because we're fearful that we don't know what the outcome is going to be. So it's easier to just not do it in the first place rather than just going, I'm just going to do it. Who cares what the outcome is? I mean, would you see that a lot?
Yes, yes. You see, the second fear becomes a thing, like something really solid and important that can prevent us from doing stuff. Well, then it's in the way, right? It's like this big block in the way. And what I've been able to see is that fear is actually a feeling in the moment. That's all. It has no substance. It has no solidity to it. And so there's really no block in the way.
Mm.
So yes, I mean, as long as people see it as solid, it's going to block them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Is that it's nearly like we visualize it as being a thing, that it's actually a thing, when it's a no thing.
Yes, yes. You know, when we first spoke, you shared with me, and I love it, and it stayed with me, the analogy of Harry Potter
Oh yeah,
and the
yeah,
wall.
yeah.
And that's exactly it. So we fear becomes because and it's innocent, right? I mean, it's not our
Mm,
fault. Everything around us points to that. It's a wall. So at the worst, you stay on that side, on one
yeah.
side of the wall. At the best, you climb over it, you go through it. If you're strong enough, you push through it, right? But when you start to understand, it's actually, and I had another thing came to me after that image. So here's the wall. We're here with our little cart, and we need to push to get to the place
Yes.
we want to go to, right? At the platform 9 3/4. So not only is the wall not real, right, but you could still argue that as long as you haven't gone through it, you don't know that it's not real.
Mm,
But what I realized too is that in your metaphor, Harry is a wizard. And because he's a wizard, the wall doesn't exist.
mm-hmm.
We're all wizards.
Yeah,
We're all wizards. We're created for this life. We're not
yeah.
separate from it. We are it. I mean, I often tell people I work with, we haven't invented the baby,
Yes, exactly. We haven't. Yes.
right? I mean, we come out and that's it. We're done. We were there, right?
Yeah.
So we are
We are
life. Yes.
intelligent, resilient, strong, creative, all the things that we think we need to learn when we come out, they are they're there within us. We just, in our thinking of how we're going to learn these, we forget, or we disconnect with the fact that it's already there. It's all already there. It's just that the thinking gets in, like a beaver building a dam in the river.
Yes.
You're building this dam with all of these sticks, and every time with thought, and every time you have another thought, oh, there's another stick on top of the dam, and another thought, so there's another stick. And if we can just stop with all of the thinking and allow the river to flow, boom, boom, it's there. And it's lovely when it starts to come. It's lovely when you start to, and you had a lovely comment that I saw you replied to somebody on Facebook page about how do you know your intuitive thinking, and original thought that's uncontaminated by thinking.
Yes, I remember that. I'm like, because I can never remember what I say and what I write, but yes, that's one I remember.
I know for a lot of people, they do sort of like, how do I know it's intuition? How do I know it's not my thinking? Because usually when you start thinking, it's like you get this lovely idea. Oh, I never thought of that before. But then our thinking brain goes, oh, right, well, I better do an autopsy on this now and pull the guts out of it and, tear it to pieces. And then you put it back together and all the bits are all, oh, actually, I'm not sure that's where the stomach is meant to go. And I think about the brain in the wrong. And then it's like, forget it. I'm not even going to go with it now.
Yeah. That's one thing that I actually learned from Michael Neal, is this willingness to follow our inclinations. So those little spurts of intuition that we get, and just the willingness to follow them and see where they go with nothing attached to it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. A huge part of my fear was linked to having to make sure that things will work out a certain way. Whereas now, it's gone. I don't have that going on anymore. I just, oh, this has popped up. That looks like a good idea. Let's give it a try. Oh, it's not working out. Oh, well, maybe a little upset along the way, but not this huge mountain of thinking and judgment and doubt and questioning myself, questioning what it meant about me and the world, and oh my God.
Yes. It's so like, it is exhausting.
It's exhausting just seeing it.
I think, I don't know, did I send somebody a message? Or I said something to somebody recently, and I am a joker. I'm a bit of a messer, and I do, I kind of say things to people, but in general, people know the spirit, especially when they know me, they know where it's coming from. And I found myself starting to go, oh, did she think that I meant that? And I just, the minute it started, I thought, God, I haven't been on this spiral in a long, long time, but I lived here in my 20s and a lot of my 30s. I lived in that spiral of, did they think that I meant that? Were they offended by that now? What did they think? And it was just when I caught myself in the moment and went, well, now that's just a thought. And it's funny because my daughter is 12 and sometimes she'll say something to me and I'll just go, and that's just a thought. And she just says that and goes, and there'll be another thought along in a couple of minutes. Just give it the space to come in. And she'll just go, okay. And off she goes.
And what you just said there, it's so important, because the first step, when you start seeing through where your experience actually comes from, right? That it's not from out there, but from what's moving through us. Well, of course, the temptation is to control what's moving through us. And I did a lot of work like that prior to this understanding, with tapping and, changing your beliefs and all that. But it's endless. Because of the nature of thought, of course, there's always going to be another one coming along. So you're never done. You're never done. There's always something else to change. So seeing that here, that actually there's always another thought coming along. We don't need to do anything. So I can have all the fearful thinking I can entertain in this moment, but soon enough, something else will come along. And this lightness of it, the fluidity of it, for me has changed everything, because that's how I move through life now. Instead of
Mm.
being all tight and fearful, I'm relaxed and fearful, because I can
Yes,
still feel fear, of
yes,
course, right? Worry and everything else, but it's it's for now. It's just for now.
yeah.
And then soon
And
it'll
I
be
think
something else. Yeah.
that's you know that is the thing, is that life still happens and events still happen that are not pleasant, and that we don't voluntarily um, wish them upon ourselves. But it's that you don't get stuck in it. I'm not explaining that very well now, and I know it's in my head. It's that the
You're not
thinking.
frozen in it. You're not
Yeah,
frozen in
exactly.
it.
It's you don't have to have all the big thinking around it. You can be
Right.
there, and you can be in the moment, and you can understand that this is a situation and I don't like this situation, and this is not a situation that I would put my hands up for, but I don't have to have all of the thinking that comes along with it. Or if
Right.
I do, I can just know that it's just thinking.
Yes. And what opens up is the space for something else to show up. So, recently I went through some difficult times with a family member, a health issue. And what I realized, I saw it so clearly, that my experience didn't come from the situation. The situation was happening. But my experience, when I was really focusing on what could happen tomorrow or in the next minute, I felt fearful. I felt really worried. And then the next minute, when I was thinking about something else, I was feeling something else. I could be still very joyful within the crisis. It was the weirdest thing to experience, because, again, knowing that it's not we believe that we are locked into an
Mm.
experience because of an outside situation. But it's not true. We can feel all sorts of things while
Mm.
moving through a situation. And again, that's so helpful to know that it's only ever a moment by moment
Yes.
experience. That's
Do
so.
you ever get, because I experience this sometimes, do you ever get people who are annoyed with you because you're not
Yes.
getting caught up in your thinking?
Yes, yes. I've had people getting very angry at me. I've had people getting annoyed, and funny enough, then I question myself.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, really, what have I? And then I realize, no, that's not how it
Mm.
works. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm seeing what I'm seeing. They're seeing what they're seeing, and that's that. I mean, there's no. I'm not going to change anything to please anyone anymore.
It's amazing that people can be so fanatical in their beliefs that go unchallenged, and that people wouldn't question. And yet if you come out with something as simple as, it's your experience is 100% from your thinking and not from your circumstances. Oh, well, that's easy for you to say, and
Yeah.
you're not living my life and my circumstances, and you don't know. And it can bring up, and that's why, I said prior to us coming onto this call that I actually said to Michael Neal earlier on in the call that if I had met him or been
Right.
in training with him a few years ago, he would have annoyed the shit out of me, because what he was saying, and, because in essence, we are not our story, we are not our
That's right.
circumstances.
That's right.
And people get really annoyed when you try to take it away from them. It's like trying to take a dummy or a pacifier off a baby. They're going to start
I
screaming.
love it.
I need this. I need
Yes.
my Dodie. I need my
Yes.
pacifier.
My pacifier. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
so right. And what I say to those people, if they're a little bit open, is, how does that help?
Mm.
How does it help you to not be open to looking at things differently. Because once we start looking, we see that that's how it works. To see it, we are not what's happened to us. We are not what we're thinking in the moment. We're not our memories. We're not our, all the past experiences. We're not that. And is that helpful? I don't know. It's everybody has to be ready to hear
Yeah.
something. I mean, like you said before with Michael Neal, and he would have annoyed you. I mean, I'm not sure that had I encountered Nicola Bird, or Michael or anyone 10 years ago, I would have been able to hear, because I was also looking for a fix, and I was looking for things to do to change my experience. And then I reached the point where I couldn't do that anymore. And the beautiful gift is that in that space of giving up was what I needed.
Yeah. You created the space,
Yeah, I
or
did. I don't know. I mean, it's just worked out that in that space of I can't do this anymore, then life was just came through, and like, what about this? Look at this now.
And what I think is lovely, I heard a radio interview recently where the presenter was talking about a journalist who's in his 90s, and one of his best friends is David Attenborough, and who's also in his 90s. And they were, the writer had said to him, "Why aren't we dead?" And they came to the conclusion that they had a boyish curiosity, of the world, because David Attenborough was heading off to Lapland at that point. And as I heard it, I was in the car and I thought, oh my God, I've got so many years left for exploring and adventure and creativity. How lucky am I that I'm getting this understanding now? Because there was a time where I was feeling a little bit hard done by, that I hadn't learned this at a younger age, that it, wasn't until my late 40s that it was finally, the penny was starting to drop with me. And, but I just thought, oh, wow, like, let's be having you. Like, what fun can we have here with this now, with this understanding? What can I do? What can I create? What adventures await me?
I went through the same thing, because I was what then, 55, 54 when I encountered this, and I thought, so much time wasted.
Yeah.
So much time wasted. Oh my goodness. But now I realize that, my mother used to have this expression in French that every type of grain becomes good flour in a good mill. So basically, it was all food for what is unfolding now. I don't think there's ever anything wasted in the experience of life.
No.
But we can think there is, right? I mean, we can think
Oh,
whatever
yes.
we want.
Yes. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm grateful for every experience, because every single one of them taught me something. And, I have the ability to just leave everything in the past, and it's, I don't really, it was an experience that I went through, but it's not me now who, so yeah. And I actually like Steve Chandler as well, and reading some of his books, because he was like in his mid to late 40s before he got his shit together as well. I know he was kind of all over the place, so I've enjoyed that. And it is important, because I know that a lot of people that I would have spoken to who are at this, oh, well, sure, look I'm in my 40s now, I'm not going to change now. I can't, this is just who I am.
Right.
And they become so resistant to growth and to exploring the possibilities, because it's like they just give up. And, when yet there's so much life left to live.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's happened in my case, I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's people um, not thinking I've gone mad necessarily, but thinking I'm in a bubble. I mean, we're not in the real world. Because if we were in the real world, we wouldn't be feeling this joyful. We wouldn't be feeling this ease and flow. Obviously, we're not in the real world, and I find this so funny because when we are fearful, we live, we are replaying data from the past.
Yeah.
So if anything, we are not in the present moment. So, and yet, when all that drops away and we really are in the present moment, it always amuses me when people think that, oh, you live in a bubble.
Yeah.
Because no, I'm so much more engaged in life than I've ever been, doing stuff all the time. It's a very practical understanding.
Mm.
It just moves you away from the stories into what is happening right now in a beautiful way.
And the thing is, what is real?
Exactly.
You could have two people in the same room at the same time and witness the same incident, and they both tell completely different stories.
Yes,
Who
yes,
is
I
right and
know.
who is wrong, and
Yeah,
both, and none of them, because it's all just a trick of the mind anyway, what
yep,
reality is. And I think that's when you get to start having fun with it.
yes. Yeah. You just don't take it so seriously anymore.
Yes. Yes.
You just don't. It's like a natural side effect of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's lovely. And, I know for me, for quite some time, because I was getting in my own way. I really was. I was literally, it was like I had big clown feet and I was tripping up on the clown feet, the shoes,
Yes, yes.
tripping myself up. And I just kept saying, will you get over yourself? Get over yourself. And it was just kind of this going on and on in my mind, because I knew I was taking myself too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I was giving myself, this importance, or this, oh, people will think this or they'll think that. It's like, even if they are, it's just thinking. Thinking is harmless
Yeah.
unless you give it a meaning.
But you see, we're able to do that because we understand.
Mm.
We understand that it's thought, right? Before I understood that, all these nice ideas from all the books that I read, get over yourself, let go of this, let go of that, forgive this person, or do that. It sounded great, but in practicality, it was really hard to do because it looked solid still. But when you understand that we only ever experiencing thought in the moment, it becomes fluid.
Mm.
And in that fluidity, there's nothing to let go of. We don't have to get out of our own way because we're not in our way from the get-go. Everything just fades away. All these rocks just fade away. They just dissolve,
Mm.
and it becomes this beautiful flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's understanding how life works that has been the key for me, and nobody ever explained that to me before.
I know. And isn't it, I see, obviously I have my kids now, so I can, well, my daughter is good and she listens. My son is 14. So, I haven't spoken to him in like 3 weeks. He's just locked in his room. I'm sure it'll filter in somewhere down the line. But, when you learn all of this stuff and you see everything that is kind of going on in the world, and you're like, why are we not teaching our children this understanding? Why does it have to get to the point that, oh, I've suffered all the anxiety and I've had all the stress and I've had all the crazy life, before we get to the point of looking for this? Why are we, and I mean, like, I know when I started on my own kind of personal development, and I came across Wayne Dyer and Esther Hicks, and was like, oh my God, these guys have been around like since the 70s and the
Yes.
80s. And, you know, now, only now am I starting to find these people and to learn from them, you know, and yet, you know, it's still something that people have to actually actively go looking for.
It is spreading more than ever before, right?
Mm,
It's just, but again, it also comes down to whether people are ready to hear it, and that's out of our control, right? I
yeah,
mean, we see what we see, we share it, and then the rest.
yeah,
So I don't know. I mean, maybe if I think it would be great to teach everybody this, but I guarantee you that because we're human and we're thinking, not everybody would take it on board.
yes,
I mean, there would be opinions being developed, and there are already, right, about it, whether it's true, not true, blah blah blah. And so we're human. Then that's okay.
yeah.
That's okay. That's part of the fun.
It is part of, and it like it is. I think, especially when you're a coach, and when like for me, I get very excited about things when I learn them, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to share this with everybody. And
Mhm.
that has calmed down an awful lot now, because what I found was that when I did go out trying to share this with everybody, yeah, they actually didn't really
Right,
want to hear it. You know, it kind of was like, oh my God, would she ever shut up with this
right.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I think we all go
So
through that, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I stopped, and I guess you do have to, and I no doubt there's a little bit of ego that kind of gets caught into the, you know, that hero mentality of I will fix everybody, um,
Yes.
but you do have to think more about, you know what, like it's the ripple effect. If I look after me, and if I start to live my life
Right.
from the inside out, other people will notice it, and it starts to rub off. And certainly I know my relationship with my children has dramatically improved since I
Mm.
have become a happier, more content person. So, and sometimes that's really all you can do.
And you know what? It's not like I think that's the most important thing. It's not just what we can do, it's the most important thing because we open the way for others, but by being, not by trying to convince. I went through that too. Oh, God. I feel sorry for those who had to listen to me, but I found the secret.
Yeah.
Now you have to listen to me, and I'm gonna tell you. And it's so obvious that, of course, you're gonna follow me because, and then I
Mm,
realized not at all because people have what they have in their heads and they're on
yeah.
their journey, and it's everybody finds their own path. But it's the most important thing. It's not derogative in any way. The most important thing we can do, as far as I can tell, is seeing deeper and deeper the truth of this understanding, and then we settle more and more into
Mm,
the flow of life, and people feel that, and people do whatever they want with it.
yeah.
But I'm done now trying to convince anyone. I mean,
Mm,
nobody's really interested around me, and that's fine because
yeah.
in the meantime, I've moved from fear to lightness. My life's been transformed, and then let's see what happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think that's beautiful, you know?
it's so
Yeah.
much easier. Oh my God.
Yeah. I know
And
it is.
I used to have to take 2 naps a day, and now I just don't nap anymore, very rarely. I mean, I'm not tired anymore all the time like I used to because
Mm,
life just does its thing, and I go along for the ride, and it's not on me, and it's so much easier.
yeah.
It's
I
really a
like that.
beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Just go along for the ride and see
Yeah.
where it takes you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cottywomple. I just love that word.
Yes, it's a beautiful word. How did you come across the word itself?
It was on a call, one of the Inner Circle
Oh,
webinars, and
yes,
Christy used it, and I went, Cottywomple, what does that
Cottywomple.
mean? And I had to Google it, and then I saw Michael wearing a T-shirt with it on,
Yes.
and I just was like, oh, that it speaks to me of just flowing. We don't have
Yep.
to know. And because I always change my mind about things, but I was nearly made to feel bad for, oh well, now if you start something you have to stick with it.
Oh, yes, I know that one well.
And trying to force things into place. And and especially when you're in business and people want you to, oh, you need to have a marketing plan, you need to have this and you need to have that. And I just was like, oh, there's something about this that just does not sit right with me. And I have a friend who actually, I interviewed her. So one of her interviews is one of the earliest, the second one that I did. And she has grown this amazing business in her house just through Goddywampling. And it wasn't until I was interviewing her that I was like, oh yeah, you actually have grown a business. But I know her and we've known each other for a long time. And I know that there was very little planning and business plans and all of that put into it. And yet here it is. And but I think when there's no defined destination, then there's so much space and room for creativity, opportunity, and just seeing what comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the word too. And it was, I heard Barb Patterson say this on a call once. She said, there's always more in the unknown than there is in the known.
Yeah, I love that.
And I love that because it's so true. It's like, if we recycle what we know, I mean, it can be helpful when you're studying something, sure, but there's always more in the unknown, obviously. That's infinite. And to be able to just open up to that.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's just, and then you Cottywomple and things happen.
I think that's a lovely note to leave it on. Yeah. There's always more in the unknown than there is in the known. And Maryse, it's been just a pleasure. I love talking to you every time. And when we get a conversation, every time I come away, I'm just like, what did we talk about? I don't know, but it just was lovely.
It was nice. Well, the feeling is mutual. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have had you on as a guest. And for those of you that tuned in, I thank you very much. And if you haven't already, if you like my page, I will be having guests on down the line. Who knows? You just never know who's going to pop up as a guest. And if you would like to, I'm going to put Maryse's contact details in the comment box if you want to reach out to her. And if you'd like to reach out to me, please feel free to do so. And thank you all for watching in and have a lovely night.
Bye. Bye.